One of the biggest things in our journey, there was 2 points in our relationship that were difficult, but changed the trajectory of our lives and of our business. And one of them was in those early stages. I came from not having a lot of money, working from a very young age. In fact, I've never not had a job since I was 14 years old. But I had a very difficult relationship with money. I, thought that like anytime you made money, you had to hoard it, for a rainy day in case something happened, because money was not abundant by any means. Lived in a very scarce and lack mentality. And when I met Shawn, even though he had less than nothing, he was an abundant thinker. Now, would you classify yourself as an abundant thinker or lack?
No, 100% abundant.
100% abundant. And have you always been that way?
No, because we are all
Okay.
programmed. Money doesn't grow on trees, all those phrases. We are programmed that way.
Totally, right? And I was programmed that way as well. And so, you know what it's like? If you could think back to the very first time you heard somebody talk about how money is all around us and it's accessible for everybody and you can make and have as much as you want. He used to talk that way. And I was like, this guy's freaking crazy, right? Because it was so against my programming, right? It was so against my way of thinking. But it was interesting. I had to realize that my inability to think abundantly and his ability to think abundantly, I was the brakes in our relationship for growth, right? You who got the growth house, like there is somebody oftentimes in a relationship that thinks more negatively, that's programmed differently, that literally is the resistance in your ability to grow and have everything that you guys desire. And that was me. So I had to do a lot of work on changing that in order for us to be in better relationship with each other and in order for me to be in better relationship with money. We wouldn't have made it if I didn't actually take action on that.
Okay, this is so good. We got to stay here for a second.
Yep.
So there's a lot of couples out there that say that like one person might not have the same mindset as the other. So, in my head, I'm like, you can't like force, your mindset on someone else. They might actually push that away. Be like, stop, don't tell me to read books. Stop telling me to listen to podcasts. Mm-hmm. So Shawn, how'd you like was it just talking with Lacey? And Lacey, what was that shift for you to realize like, I want to actually think more abundantly and have a different mindset?
Well, I love that you said that, like for people in a relationship. So if you are in a relationship, you know that you're probably not going to talk your spouse into a new way of thinking.
Ever. Yeah. I mean, we can all agree on that. That's easily agreeable.
And I think most people would also agree, like your spouse will oftentimes come home both ways and say like, hey man, Jesse told me this thing. It was the coolest thing. And Lacey's like, that's what I've been telling you for years, right? Like that same thing, right? So I think mentorship, coaching, very important. I think that Lacey also wanted, I don't think anybody's like, I just want to be miserable and poor. So she wanted to understand it. She had a desire. She actually read a book that radically, I had read this book, and then some other people started talking about the book, and then I was like, we should read that book, and then she read the book. And so I think combination of this book plus mentorship, other people being able to coach and guide her is what was able to make that shift.
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing is awareness, right? No matter what we're dealing with in our thought processes, positive or negative, in our emotional state, it's having an awareness first, then an understanding, then an acceptance, and then a desire to do more. And so, for me, it was like because I was in the presence of Shawn talking in that way. Finally in my life, I had what I considered contrast. Oh, there is a different way of thinking, right? And I think that that's really powerful if you can separate out your resistance to it. And for me, I was like, man, I do want to think that way. I don't want to believe that money isn't abundant. I don't want to believe that making money is hard. I don't want to live in a life where I always have to feel like I have to trade time for money and that there is a ceiling. And so, okay, I was like, what do I do? And so people started talking and telling me about this book. For everybody listening, I have recommended this book to hundreds and hundreds of people, and it has changed their life. It's called The Little Money Bible by Stuart Wilde. The reason I like it is because it is little, it's small, it's fast to get through, and it has a ton of information in there that will challenge your way of thinking and challenge your programming if you thought like myself or if you thought like Jesse. And so what I actually did is when I read that book, all the things that he talked about that made me super uncomfortable, I actually wrote them down because I was like, the reason they make me uncomfortable is because I don't understand them and I don't necessarily believe them, but that's why I am where I am. And I wrote them down and then I read, it was like one page of all these one-liners and I read it every single day until I started to ingrain it into my programming and create a new belief system. So it was really powerful. And I had people do that exercise if you're really struggling with your relationship with money.
That's amazing. There's another book that really helped me that sounds very similar, The Secrets of the Millionaire Minds by Harv Eker. That definitely had so many limiting beliefs I had before reading that book, and then realized like, okay, there is abundance out there. All those things that we've been programmed as kids that we keep hearing over and over again are actually not true.